computer. All right. So, hey, everybody, welcome to The Rock with Kenny C and The Rock Radio with Kenny C. And we're trying some new things out, different platforms, trying to get stuff across to everything else. Today, we're going to do this with Zoom. Then I'm going to throw some audio out, podcast for people who want it. But today, we've got one of my favorite people in the world, Dr. Judd Burton. What's up, Judd? How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Kenny, what's the word?
The word is a Burton. Hey, you know what's funny, man? I had a good joke today. I can't remember what it was now. Oh my gosh, I had one for you and it's gone. Ugh, I'll have to think about it. I don't know. Oh, I know what it was. I was thinking about, I was in church and I was like, oh man, what are we going to call this band with me and Judd Burton and stuff? And I was like, Judd and the Beast of Burton.
Oh my gosh.
Terrible. I'm sorry, I had to do it. I threw it in there. I was like, no, I was saving it for it. It was in my head. I was like, I want to say it. So it's okay. Yeah. We'll come up with something much better. I really like Goat's X. That's a good one, but you know, we'll come up with something, man. It'll be fun. People don't even know what we're talking about. They're like, what if they start right off?
What's going on here? This is
what's going on here. All I'm going to say is some cool things are being thrown around, and stick around because there's some really cool things going on. You're going to find out today. Everybody knows Dr. Judd Burton. If you don't, you got to get into his books. He has his own section. I'm going to show you this in the video. You probably can't see it, but I'm going to talk about it. But you have a whole folder of nothing but Judd Burton books on my Kindle next to Skywatch. It's the second biggest one I have. So I have all these great PDFs. Yes, absolutely. I have my real books too, but you know, I keep them on there. I love to read them when something comes up and I hear somebody talking about it on a podcast. I'm like, oh, I'll pull it up. So great stuff. I love it. Judd, I had you on Facebook Live a couple weeks ago. We talked about some stuff. This is kind of a new thing, new platform we're pushing across. It'll still go on Facebook, but for people who do not know who you are, let's talk about that. Give us a little insight into you.
Sure. I'm primarily a historian of religions, specifically the early Christian era, Greco-Roman world. That's where a lot of my work has been done in, I guess, in just sort of the trajectory of my training. But I'm broadly interested in things, and that's where the anthropologist in me comes out. So I have a PhD in history and a master's degree in anthropology, which also bought me a lot of archaeological training. And so I sort of wear the proverbial shoes of three different professions. And that works out well because you get a more cohesive, far less truncated view of history when you're applying different theoretical approaches from those disciplines, but because you don't always have all the text that you need to work with. Sometimes you have to supplement that with material evidence from archaeology, from oral tradition. You get that from anthropology, and so I essentially that's what I am, as a historian and anthropologist, and I also dig in the dirt when need be.
Absolutely. And you're an amazing Christian too, man. You've got some great things to go with it. I love how all this ties together. It's fascinating. I've kind of come to being a fan here in the last year, listening to you on different stuff. I think the first time I heard you was on Derek Gilbert's View from the Bunker, and then Derek made a mistake and had me on as a guest, and then he had you back, and everything was back on track. It was fantastic. It was like I looked at it, was like Dr. Burton's on both sides of my podcast that Derek did with me. I was like, I hope people are super disappointed. But I was like excited. I was like, man, I'm in some pretty good company here. So yeah, I love Derek Gilbert and those guys, man.
They're great.
So listen, you're on a lot of things. I got a couple of friends. I see you're going to be on some other podcasts, and you're super busy. I'm very glad I was able to squeeze you in, and you had some time for me, and we can talk a little bit. Man, I consider right now, I'm going to go ahead and say this. I think episode 88 of Blurry Creatures is the greatest podcast of all time. I think.
Oh, thanks, man.
People agree with me. It's just one of those great podcasts. Everything's on firing on all synapses. It was a good one, man.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, man. Nate said, man, this is lightning in a bottle. So it really was.
No, it
Yeah,
really was, man. And I think you even sang a little bit from Lord of the Rings, and you
I
were.
did. I sang the first line from the Song of the Lonely Mountain. So
That's right, you did. I was
yeah,
like, what is going on here? I heard it. I
I
was
know.
like, this is some great stuff here, man. I mean, it really shows you. I mean, not only you have an amazing educational stuff, but you have you love a lot of the stuff that I grew up with, a lot of the fantasy and Tolkien and all these different ones. You have a great basis of, and not even we haven't even gotten into music yet, because I think that's
Yeah,
somewhere where we really bonded and
yeah,
come together. It's like all of a sudden it's like, hey, wait a minute. Because I it's so funny. I really do see some of the things you're doing, and I love all the things your entire career and your education. And I've always been interested in those things and read and studied and all this stuff.
hmm
But but I'm a musician, and that's basically what I did. And
hmm
to hear you talk about things about how you did this, and then you're like, hey man, I was a musician too at this time when I was in high school and playing bands. And I was like, oh man, we're like the same guy. We just took two
yeah.
different paths.
That's it.
And
That's it,
now
dude.
we're coming back together. It's like, hey man, I've been over here doing this. I've been over here doing this. And then all of a sudden we're coming back together. And I'm like, who would have ever thought this would be something happen? Because we've really got some great ideas and some stuff coming that I don't think people are ready for. They're going to be like,
Oh
what do you
yeah,
come together? And I'm excited. I'm not going to bust anything out yet because a lot of it's speculation, and we've got things
right.
we got to talk about, work about. But we are talking about doing some kind of musical project together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, there's going to
Definitely.
probably be something we're not sure. There's probably going to be maybe some recordings, but even possibly we're looking at maybe even being a live show somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
There's a
crazy.
there's a good chance. I mean, there's gonna be there's gonna be denim jackets and skull caps and scarves on microphones. It's gonna
I
be the
can't.
best.
I just love the possibility that's even talked about. I'm excited because I'm like, you know what, this will be really, really, really cool to do, and I hope it doesn't turn out to just be a one thing, that like there's something brews out of this, and we can do some recordings, some stuff, and shows here and there. So it'll be a lot of fun, man. So listen, let's get talking about some things, man. When you were on Blurry, you were talking about, and people are gonna be like, what is Blurry? Yeah, Blurry Creatures. Go look at this. Go find this podcast or whatever Spotify, Apple Music, whatever. I'm telling you, these guys are doing something fantastic. It is crossing all the borders. I love it. It's probably my favorite podcast right now.
Yeah,
And I love it because these guys are Christians, man. It's solidly in a biblical worldview, but they're talking about some really great stuff, and having people on that you may be like, what in the world are they talking about? And I love it. There's no judgment. It is just great questioning, great talk.
right.
Go check them out. That's all I'm going to say. Blurry's just fantastic, and I love them. And they have you on a lot. You're probably one of their favorite people they have on there. So
hmm
I can't take that back. You're my favorite person on here too. All these other people, but it's just one of these things, man. It's a Judd Burton thing. So when you were on the Blurry recently, episode 88, not only you actually dropped my name on it, which was crazy. I got Kenny playing Dogman, and that was enough for me to be like, some King
Oh man,
size stuff.
that ranks as one of the coolest things to ever happen to me, man. When you shot back with the Dogman riff.
Yeah, how could I not, man? You
Yeah,
posted it, and I went, oh no, I went and got my guitar out and put on the thing. I was like, wait, I gotta play this, man. And I
yeah,
honestly don't think I'd played the riff in about 10 years.
yeah.
I played it in a band before, but it had been a long time, and I was like, oh, I'm totally gonna do this. And it was just,
Cool.
and it made me go, oh, if we don't do something and play some King's X at some point somewhere, we're missing out on life.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. My buddy Cliff came over yesterday, and he's a musician too. And I'm like, hey, dude, check this out. And I showed him the clip of you playing Dogman. He's like, man, he nailed the Tabor tone. And I said, on a $50 guitar,
That's
man.
what it is. That's what everybody's like, dude. I said, dude, it's a 50. But I tell people all the time, man, a lot of that stuff, I go back and listen to it. It is a lot of it's, man, it's your fingers, man.
It's your fingers. Absolutely.
that was a cheap. I mean, it's not cheap, but it's the Spark amp. I think it's a
Yeah,
practice amp. My kids get
yeah,
it. I use it for practicing to play
sure,
along with stuff, but I can
sure.
sit there and tweak it and go boom. And I was like,
Yeah,
that sounds a hard sound to get. And Todd Taylor
yeah,
is one of my favorites. So
yeah,
I think I tend to tweak my sound in that direction anyways, because I love
yeah.
it. So it kind of falls into, but yeah, that was a
With that
$50 axle.
that tube driven overdrive with just a touch of chorus and reverb, and then playing it through a tin roof sound. That's Todd Table right there.
That's it. I got these the little speakers that were there, and coming through. I was like, this is gonna sound just perfect, and it did. When I
Yeah.
listened back to it, I was like, man,
Yeah.
it's just good stuff. But yeah, that was really fun. I'm glad to hear you guys enjoyed that. It was fun. But
Yeah.
so we were talking about when you were on Blurry Creatures, you brought out some new information that a lot of people probably do not know a lot about. I'm hoping we're dropping some stuff to them, but a lot of people don't understand that when I talk about let me see here. My whole thing with the Rock with Kenny C really came from you. I was inspired by you talking about my brain is not working right now, but it's and I can't even pronounce it. Caesarea Philippi.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
whole aspect of that. Derek Gilbert was talking about you and talking about it, and I was like, am I pronouncing that right? Caesarea Philippi.
Yeah. Caesarea Philippi. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. But when we talked about it, and it made me really look at that and see what was actually said and what was going on, and it changed me completely, because I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the turning point. This is really where it's like Jesus, like, man, I'm laying it down here. Here's where the church is going to be. This was going to be on this, and where it was. Now, when you brought this out on Blurry, man, you said, hey, I think there's a possibility that Jesus, the timing of this had to do with a certain festival that was going on,
Mm-hmm.
which is called
It's called the Lupercalia.
the Lupercalia. Now, what is the Lupercalia? Because that's supposed to be.
Well, the general consensus amongst the scholarly community about the timing of this, the timing of Jesus's arrival at Caesarea Philippi has generally been in the winter before his death.
Okay.
And I'm always musing, where can we push this? Can we narrow it down? Is there, in other words, and this sort of goes without saying, I'm always, trying to cull new information there, because it's that side and that region is all, it's just giving forth new stuff all the time.
Right.
So I thought about it some, and it wasn't, it's not as if I was in scholarly mode when it hit me. I mean, it's kind of funny, it works the same way for like musicians. Like sometimes you're not even in like, you don't even have your guitar on or something. You're not even playing, and the stuff of inspiration just hits you. It was kind of like that. I wasn't doing anything scholarly. I was just sort of like thinking about it in the back of my mind, and it just hit me that it stands to reason that the Lupercalia, which took place on February the 15th on the Roman calendar,
Right,
is probably the best candidate if we're going to confine it to the winter before his death, for a number of reasons, but not the least of which is because the Lupercalia, if we're to believe the work that's been done on it by scholars like T.P. Wiseman, who wrote he's actually written several excellent articles on the Lupercalia. T.J. Cornell is another one, and of course Ward Fowler, who wrote decades and decades and decades ago about the Roman calendar. I would highly recommend, if you're interested in that sort of thing, I would highly recommend you and your audience looking into some of those guys. But if we're to believe T.P. Wiseman, and I think the case is pretty clear that the god that's being worshipped in the auspices of the Lupercalia is Pan,
right,
because it was a shepherd's festival in which there were these sort of apotropaic rituals that were done to kind of keep some really weird things away from flocks, goats and sheep. Not weird in the way of, you would expect them to be wary of predators like big cats and wolves and things like that. And the name Lupercalia, that's the wolf part there. But they were also concerned with warding off a kind of werewolf creature that existed within Roman lore. But I say all that just to circle back to Pan, because Caesarea Philippi was only Caesarea Philippi for a short time in the 1st century AD. For most of its history, it was known as Paneas, the
Right.
city of Pan, because of the large cave that the Ptolemies and then the Seleucids dedicated to Pan,
Right.
which became the central temple fixture on the Temenos, the sacred area of the city. And so, you know, if people have listened to me talk about this before, about how, how pregnant with meaning the backdrop of Mount Hermon and this, pagan Greco-Roman center in northern Israel was, and the events that happened there would have been familiar to the Jewish audience. Even the Greco-Romanized Etrurians that lived there would have known about it. But in my work, I've traced Pan's identity all the way back through a series of goat gods in the Levant and the ancient Near East, all the way back to the Watcher Azazel.
Yeah.
And so it would make sense that if Jesus is firing a shot over the bow of the enemy, that the timing would also be important too. And so I think that this is just sort of adding insult to injury. He's literally drumming old Pan or Azazel over the nose by arriving. He's crashing his party.
Yeah.
And we know that the Lupercal was a big thing at Paneas, because we have inscription evidence. We have all kinds of votive offerings that were given in the
Right.
cave, remnants of that sort of thing. The communal meals, that they offered and attended there. So we know that was going on. The region was well known for animal husbandry and the keeping of flocks of goat and sheep. And so here you have juxtaposed at Pan's big regalia every year on February the 15th. You have the God of the shepherds squaring off with the good shepherd.
Right.
And so there's definitely that juxtaposition there. But I've spent so much time on the sacred geography, the sacred geographical aspects of this visit, that I haven't really dedicated a lot of time to the temporal aspect of it here. And this just sort of, it was completely a God thing. It just sort of dumped in my lap.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like, oh yeah,
No,
Lupercalia. And
it
I
was
was like,
great.
why didn't I think of this before?
And
I'm,
when you kind of came out, how long had you been thinking about this? Because it popped up and it was like, hey man, and the fact that you kind of dropped it right about the time Lupercalia, the actual on the February 15th was happening. I was like,
yeah.
okay, the timing of this is like, how long has he been sitting on this? Because this is some pretty cool stuff, man.
Well, I mean, I really hadn't been sitting on it that long. I had been just sort of content with in the winter before his death, Jesus
That's
visited
right.
Caesarea Philippi.
But you're doing a new paper on this, right? You're
That's
actually
right. Yeah,
awesome.
I am. And yeah, the timing is interesting because it happened really, it was really just a couple of weeks before.
Sure. Right.
It was late January, early February.
So for people who, some people may be listening to be like, I'm not really sure what's going on here. You have a lot of great books that you can order, but you can get a lot of them in ebooks. You have great collections you have for stuff. And one of them is Paneas, Religion in the Ancient City of Pan. It's a fantastic book there. You have a couple different books that I have that, I think the first one I got was The Interview with the Giant. And I think
Yeah.
I bought that and had it shipped here, and that's the one that really got me like, oh man, you kind of set me onto some things. I took a class with you on vampirology last fall. That kind of set some things for me from reading that book, and I am taking a werewolf class, and I'm being a terrible student right now because I am so slammed with stuff. I am not catching up on things, so I'm like, oh, I've got to read this and do some things. So between this and the Heiser class and all these things, and I know I'm teaching like 70 students a week, which is crazy.
Yeah, I hear you. My load's about 85, so
yeah,
I hear you.
I'm like, so hopefully you'll be gentle when my papers are late.
Oh yeah, I designed this stuff to be flexible, and I've had people have to put studies on hold for one reason or another. I get it. It's not like walking onto a college campus. And
No,
I,
I think
design these things, because I knew that most of my students would have life going on.
that's
I
right,
get I
right,
get it.
absolutely. That's what I've had some people ask me about it, and they're like, well, what's taking the classes like? And I'm like, and I'm in my fourth semester with Heiser at the Awakening School of Theology, and his class stuff's a little different. It's you have the video things, and there's some things with it. I think you've got some things coming. You've got some changes coming
I
to your
do.
classes
Uh-huh.
too. And I really like that setup. Yours was great too, because I was able to integrate it in. I was able to just read and study at my own kind of pace and then write you what I was getting from it. And I told people, I said, look, he's going to tell you what you're
Yeah.
writing about. And you get like a lot of my papers I thought were pretty good. And you point out some things, I'll be like, I didn't even think about that, but that's why I'm taking the class. So
Well, your grade so far is still the Nuno string skipping solo.
yes, I know. That's what I said. I told somebody about that. Of course, nobody gets that but musicians and people who are Nuno fans and stuff. And I was
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry, that is probably the greatest academic accolade I could ever have in my life. That your paper
Absolutely.
is
You're
a
like
I
you're
mean,
like
I was like, I read it and I was like, oh my gosh, dude, that's just, that's good
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. You just tell them go listen to the solo on It's a Monster on
Oh my gosh, that's it. Go listen to
that's it.
that and come back and talk to me. And even if you don't play guitar, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh. Or go watch it and play it live on some videos.
Yeah, watch him go play it live and yawn while he's playing it.
Oh, that's the one he did from the last couple years ago. He did. He literally
Yeah.
is like,
Yeah.
and he's I was
Yeah.
like, and everybody's like, I'm like, dude, that's Nuno, man. So it's
Yeah,
good
that's
stuff.
that's Nuno.
I love it. So if you were going to tell someone, like, as far as picking a great book to start with to learn more about Judd Burton, what would you choose?
I think that I would probably still recommend Interview with the Giant because it
Yeah.
covers a lot of ground. And the way that book, I mean, it's integrally tied with my work at Bonius. It really is, because the
Yeah.
way that book came about is, naturally I'm writing this dissertation on Peneus, and
See that, or it's flipped, or oh, there, that's right. There we go.
yeah, got a new edition coming out too. Actually,
You have a new cover. You have something coming
new cover, man. It's totally rock and roll.
Awesome. I can't wait to see it. I'll buy
Yeah,
it too, man. I have to have multiple copies. That's the
y-
kind of person I am. Like, oh, it's hardback, softback, ebook. I got them all. That's just the way.
absolutely, absolutely.
Cool.
So I'm writing my dissertation, like I have tons of extra time to be doing this stuff, but I keep running into these questions, that I can't really answer them in the context of my dissertation outline, but my intellectual curiosity, is peak, just
Right.
because of the mode that I'm in. I'm just this
Right.
engine of research. And so I'd lay them aside, and if I had time at the end of the day, I'd kind of sketch them out, and these little chapters kept adding up, and I'm like, it's like I'm writing two books at the same time. Well, one that will have an impact on the rest of my career,
Sure.
and this other one where I'm making, I'm trying to apply anthropological models to the study of the biblical giants, which I didn't really see anybody doing at the time.
Oh
And
wow.
so I meant for it to be answering those questions for my own curiosity, but also part introduction to the subject without really reading like an introduction to the subject, because
Sure.
I was using ethnohistory and ethnology and even things like epidemiology to study the giant tribes and clans, and um, just try some things that had not really I had not really seen tried
Right.
in our burgeoning field.
Sure.
Um, I really kind of took a cue from a couple of people. One of them was Moses Finley, who was a classicist, and he wrote an excellent book called "The World of Odysseus," in which he looked at Homer's literature as if it were like an anthropologist's field notes,
Oh wow.
and he wanted to see what he could glean, and he learned that a lot of the imagery that Homer was using the types of swords that were being used, the boar tusk helmets, the figure eight cowhide helmets. You didn't see a lot of that at the height of the Mycenaean period. It was toward the end and going into the Dark Age and finally the Archaic period when Homer was alive. And so literally Homer was using the imagery around him to kind of build this world that was centuries gone from where he was at. And another fellow that I was interested in at the time was who I mentioned a moment ago was Ward Fowler, who like Moses Finley was taking what anthropologists were doing and applying it to the fields of ancient history and the classics, to see what new insights they could glean. And Fowler wrote, he wrote a number of voluminous studies on Roman religion, just based on these anthropological approaches. And anyway, so I thought, if it worked for them, not that anthropology hadn't been used to study the Bible before, but I was specifically curious about the issue of giants and the Watchers.
Right.
So in other words, was there cultural distinctiveness between the tribes? Did they have social and cultural institutions like humans did? And
Right.
I think the Bible's pretty explicit in a number of places about that. And so I took the most explicit material that I could find, explicit insofar as what the Bible revealed, contextually about
Sure.
what these things were and how they behaved, and just taking into account everything I could: folklore, demographics, poetry, warcraft, you name it. It was all up for grabs. And so I built this kind of meta picture of giant culture, using those models, and it sort of distilled into Interview with the Giant. And that's why I called it Interview with the Giant, because it was anthropological in nature. It was like it was almost like, not that I would necessarily be comfortable interviewing Nephilim or Rephaim or anything like that, but it worked. The title worked, so I ran with it.
It does. It's great. It's got some great things in it. I really enjoy it. I kind of use it's like, it's a go-to book. I go to it for lots of things. And when people are talking about stuff, I'm like, hold up, I'm gonna look right here and pull out some info and get things back on track.
I'm honored.
Yeah, no, it's great stuff, man. It really is. So listen, man. So yeah, the Lupercalia stuff's really, I can't wait to see what you come out with that. Just to, it's exciting. It's exciting to me to hear it, and just some new information. But let's go. We're gonna go completely out of this thing now with Judd Burton. We were talking the other day about, of course, if you haven't figured this out, myself and Judd are huge Extreme fans, and we mean
huge.
The band
Yeah.
Extreme. And we chit chat about Extreme a lot. We talk about songs and riffs and all kinds of stuff. So it's a big thing for us, and we're particularly huge fans of Nuno Betancourt, who is the guitar player for Extreme. Some people these days know him from doing some other stuff, but he will always be, to me, he is the guitar player for Extreme, and that's
right.
that's it. So but one thing we were talking about the other day, I kind of made a point about the fact, was that Extreme has probably, they're my favorite band that's not a Christian band, but they have a song that's on their first album that just, man, I'm telling you, it is a spectacular Christian song and imagery. Yeah. And there's people that I know that have heard this song for 30 some years and don't realize that's what they're singing about.
They're singing about the crucifixion. Absolutely.
And it's one of those things, I guess, that people don't pay attention to. I mean, it's got a great melody, great harmonies. The solo is spectacular.
Yeah.
Really one of those things you're just like, oh my gosh. So let's talk about this. When you first heard this song, I think we both probably became fans around the same time.
Yeah.
I became a fan in '89, and that's when I moved to Boston to go to Berklee College of
Mhm.
Music. So for me, it was like I'd gotten the cassette because that's how old I am. The cassette and was
Right.
listening to it, and then I moved to Boston in May of '89. That's when I
Mhm.
moved. I do the summer stuff. So I was already this extreme fan, and then got there, and then even back then, we weren't really the internet stuff wasn't happening at that point. So
Yeah. Yeah.
information came different ways. I didn't realize that all their stuff that they were basically a Boston band. I was just listening to them. Oh, it's cool. It's got some good stuff. And then you get to Boston. I was like, oh my gosh, I mean, Boston was Aerosmith and all this stuff to me, but all of a sudden it was like extreme. And I got to see them play more than any other band I ever had. I think they're probably more influential to me as a live band than anything
Yeah.
I've ever. To me, they were Queen. I never got to see Queen in its heyday, and
Yeah.
I love Queen, but to see Extreme play was four guys, big harmonies, great guitar work. It was just, to me, I think they had everything that, and
I agree too. I mean, just consummate musicianship.
oh
I
yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
just completely tied, and not not just that's what always liked about Nuno, is that he was not so focused on, although he could and was showy,
Yeah.
because I mean that's your role as a guitar player.
Hmm.
But he understood his part in the machine of making a good rock band.
Oh yeah.
And I think your analogy there is apt, and they were heavily influenced by Queen,
Oh,
just in terms
absolutely.
of, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was kind of like Queen if Brian May was more like Eddie Van Halen. It was you would get
Right.
this kind of like Guitar Hero over the top technical stuff. And I mean, Nuno was doing stuff on his first album that to me is still very hard to play. And there's a lot of stuff that there's things that people go, I mean, you just don't realize how difficult it is. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
but most people's first, probably thing they ever heard by Extreme was probably Play With Me from the Bill and Ted soundtrack. And that was
Right.
it, play from that. And that, and you're hearing that and you're going, and you're like, oh, wow, this is pretty amazing stuff, pretty crazy. And kind of fun, and I loved all the stuff about it. But I will say this is what I said. So the song we're going to talk about today, Watching Waiting. This is the crucifixion song. I got out my thing for people who are watching the video. You can see there's a picture of Extreme.
The
This is what I call the worst tab book of all time. It's really terrible. And if you don't know what that means, it means that the music for guitar is in it, and it ain't very good. It doesn't help you really learn how to play anything. So
is that a Wolf Marshall transcription?
it is not, man, because I'm gonna tell you what, Wolf Marshall would have probably been upset if this had been pressed in his name, man.
Yeah.
This is good stuff. I don't know who did the transcription in it, but it does not say, and I would have probably taken my name off of it also.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not good at all. So but I've kept it all these years because it's one of those things, like I like to see some of the parts. Most of the riffs are just played wrong. And
Yeah.
I watched him play things, and I always tell people that the coolest thing I thought about when I watched Nuno play live was it demystified what he was playing, because I could see it and go, he's not thinking about this in rocket science terms. He is
Right.
playing something really cool and adding my flair to it. And it was totally doable if you knew what he was doing. But
Yeah.
when you hear it and you don't see it, you're like, I have no idea what's going on here. It's some crazy stuff. But
Yeah.
and I posted a link to the song so people could kind of hear it and
Hmm.
see it. I'll tape it. But the song's called Watching Waiting. So listen, I'm gonna go through the lyrics here and just kind of go through the first verse so you guys can understand. This is the lyrics of the song. So it says, hanging above the ground, all my limbs are bound. You're on the right hand with your head down. Tears from eyes that cannot see. He took the blame from me. So shall it be written. So shall it be done. Now, right off the bat, when I hear the song, it's the comment. I can see where maybe people aren't catching the lyric because they're not thinking about it in terms of it being a religious song. Now I'm thinking from their point of view, these boys were probably raised Catholic.
I think
I don't
so.
know for sure. I
Yeah.
think so. Probably Nuno and probably Gary. I don't know. I don't know. They're so, but to me, what's really funny about that, this one here says that the lyrics were Gary Sharon. So maybe Gary wrote this
Mhm.
one himself. I don't know. It says music by Newton Betancourt, but I don't know if this book is legit on who did what or what's going
Yeah.
on. So when you're reading, when you hear those, when you first heard those words and stuff, did you know right off the bat when you first heard the song, you're like, what are they talking about? What is this? For you
Well, I
personally,
mean, not at first. At first listen, no,
I didn't either.
because I was just sort of, I was in hero
Oh,
worship
yeah,
mode.
you're like, oh yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
me too.
listening to it in totality, and it must have been like maybe the third or fourth time that I heard it. I'm like, wait a minute,
It
they're talking.
actually, yeah, for me
So
it
it's
was
like
actually like,
straight
yeah,
up the
I was
crucifixion.
like,
Yeah,
wait a minute, my brain went there and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the crucifixion. And I was
yeah,
like, but the placement of it in this album, you're like, wait a minute, man. I mean, it's kind of crazy because I mean, look, I'm gonna be honest. The very first song was that was called "Little Girls," and it's probably wouldn't get a lot of love these days because the
right.
lyrics and stuff. But it's rock and roll, man. It was the late '80s. It's funny, it's to me, it's like all the songs you hear from that time period. Wingers, she's only
Well,
17.
and that on that note, that was they were they had an ironical tone about it sounded like on songs like that and on some of their later records, like Susie was another one. It's just on the surface, you think that it sounds like they're glorifying this stuff, but
Yeah,
I think it's kind of tongue in cheek. I think
I
that
think it
they're
is too. Yeah.
yeah,
It is, and I thought
yeah,
so too. A lot of their stuff that they've got some great things, and I'll tell you, sing go on, and we'll probably talk about all kinds of things. Just some really cool musical things that happen in their songs. That he'll pull riffs and stuff from other songs and stick it in to
yeah,
another song, and you'll be like, hear it. There's a bunch of that happening, even
yeah,
on the second album and the third album,
yeah,
where you're hearing a song and he's putting a little riff behind there to kind of recapitulate the song from somewhere else. And you're like, oh wait
yeah.
a minute, did I just hear that? I know that from
Yeah,
some.
there's stuff like that on Waiting for the Punchline too.
Oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
absolutely, man. It's just, yeah, we're fans. We're going to talk about this. But so to me, right off the bat, when you get to the chorus of this song, it says, "Watching, waiting, staring at the sun." Now it is they in the lyrics it says SON, so right off the
SON.
bat it's SON, not even knowing who you are. Man, that is just it's stuff. And I will say this: just reading the lyrics, it's like, okay, I see it. But when you hear the harmony, the chord progression, the singing and stuff, man, it's majestic, dude. It is like truly an amazing song that really has a lot of impact to me.
Yeah, it's I mean it's an 80s power ballad, but it's so powerful in terms of its message.
Oh yeah,
Um it's just
absolutely.
like I'm pretty sure I shed a tear when I realized what it was actually about.
I'm gonna
And I
tell
was
you
like,
what, I was in school at Boston, and a lot of times, man. I mean, I'll be honest. There was times, man. I was like, I grew up in Buchanan, Virginia, very small town. I had never really traveled much at that point in my life. Everything was around the area here in Virginia, and I was living in
mhm,
Boston. You get homesick, man. And I would sit and put music on to kind of take me out of the moment of what was going on because Berkeley was tough, man, and it was you had to be there and really work hard and stuff. So
yeah,
I remember listening to this song one night, listening to the album, just kind of absorbing it in, and it hitting me and going, "Oh my gosh, this is the crucifixion." And it moved me, man, because I was like, "This." And if you hear it and you know this and you listen to the lyrics and you're not moved by it, there's something wrong with you. You don't have a heart or a soul. I'm sorry, you're
yeah,
dumb.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
really it's amazing. So like the
And it's
second, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that the placement of two songs in particular, this one and Rockabye on the other
Oh
side.
my gosh.
I mean, because the theme of this most of the record is like most of it's like play with me, where it's
That's
like
right.
neighborhood
It,
childhood games,
that's
just
right.
just
Mother
kid
don't want
stuff.
to go to school today.
Mother don't want to go to school today. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
absolutely.
All
And
the
so
songs,
it's this
Teacher's
kind of
Pet. I mean, it's just
yeah,
right. It's very
it's
playful
just
rock
kind of
and roll.
lighthearted stuff, and then you're
Yeah.
like, okay, well, they're now they're talking about not just the crucifixion, but
Oh yeah,
implicit in that is the resurrection and salvation
that's right.
element. And then in rockabye,
Yeah.
it's an anti-abortion
It
song.
is, man. This was 89.
80 this is right in 89. And I mean, coming from the music business, I mean,
It is, man.
it's
You're
a
like,
calculated strategical thing of how and what songs end up on an album.
sure.
And you just have to wonder, if God's hand, I think God's hand was in that, those two songs ending up on the record.
Yeah, I
And,
agree.
and
I totally agree. And I'll tell you what, like, we'll kick that here in a second. I'm gonna go through the second verse of Watching Waiting, and then we'll jump on the Rockabye Bye. So the second verse of Watching Waiting says, 3 hours have gone by. We start to question why. Darkness falls in, finding out why you must die. We can no longer see the sun, S-O-N. The three united into one. Come on, man. Please forgive us, Father. We know not what we've done. That, man, at that point, you're like,
yeah.
And then the chorus is watching, waiting, staring at the sun, not even knowing who you are. It
Yeah.
is majestic, man. It is something
That
else.
was the one, that second one, please forgive us, Father. We know not what
Man.
that one had me bawling like a infant.
It's still, I still listen to it. It still has the same impact
Yeah.
30 some years later. It's that powerful song. And
Yeah.
somebody did a video where they interpolated a bunch of Jesus imagery and stuff from the Passion of the Christ with
Right.
that song. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, man.
Yeah,
You
I've seen
watch that,
it's
you're just
powerful.
like, it is super powerful.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing. It really is. So I love that song. I hope people go check it out. It's a great one. Man,
And by the way, people, yes, this is the same extreme that did More Than Words and Wholehearted.
That's right. That's right. That's right. It's really funny. I'm just a huge Extreme fan, just because being up there. But I was there when the albums were released. But there was a factor that happened with Extreme. Their second album, More Than Words. I remember being at the show they debuted at. I remember being at the live show and hearing it. And I remember talking to my buddy, and I was just like, that song it was so different from anything, and it was beautiful. And it kind of had this Everly Brothers kind of.
Everly Brothers, yes.
I heard it, I was like, man, these guys can do anything. Not really thinking this song's going to be as big as it was. But it was as big as that song was, it also was detrimental to their career, because then everything had to be, we want everything to sound like More Than Words.
Yeah.
And that album, the Extreme 2, the Pornography album itself, is the most returned album of all time.
Yeah.
And that was during that time period there. And that's how, so now things are different. But back then, you bought physical product. People went out and bought CDs and records and tapes. And we talked about it at school, because people would get it for More Than Words, and it wasn't More Than Words. I mean, there was only two songs on an album that had that vibe: More Than Words and Wholehearted. And Wholehearted has a whole thing too with its lyrics too, man. We'll get to the second album. But yeah, it really was one of these things where you were just like, you knew it kind of hurt them, because even on their third album, at the end of Rest in Peace song, they had to do a part that sounded like More Than Words.
Yeah, it was a More Than Words sounding. Yeah.
Yeah, they had to add that to it just so people go, oh, I know this song, even though that song is just rocking, dude. It was so good. And Nuno was kind of channeling a little bit of Hendrix in his stuff there. It had it was a great song and big lyrics. And at the end, you did it. And I understand why they did it. I guarantee the record label said, if you don't put this on here, we can't release this.
Yeah.
And it worked. It sounded good, but crazy stuff. The record industry is pretty wild. So, but okay, so we've been talking about that. Now we're already talking. We're in the first album. Let's go ahead and talk about Rockabye Bye, because like you said,
Sure.
it is. And I don't know. I'm sure. I can't imagine anyone not hearing this song. It's got the piano. It's got the strings. It's very orchestrated. It's a beautiful song. But the lyrics basically say, if you could only hear the silent screams when you wake them up from their dreams, nothing is heard, not even a word. And I was like, now just to hear it like that's something, but when you hear it sung in the context of the melody and the chords, it's just, man, it hits you hard. And then the chorus is simply rockabye, rockabye baby. That's it. Rock, rock. That's it. The second verse is where you kind of really hit the thing. If they had any choice at all, you still can't hear those voices that call. And when the bow breaks, the cradle will fall. Cradle will fall. And this song is an anti-abortion song, man. It is straight up. There's nothing there. And the song itself is absolutely fantastic. But right after the song on the album, there's a little space.
Yeah.
There's some sounds, and you are then hit with probably one of the most incredible instrumental guitar solos that Nuno's ever done. It is something, the chords, the notes, and it is tied to this song. And you're like, oh, you feel it. It's like the instrumental part of this emotion of these children and being aborted. And you're like, oh my gosh. I mean, it's hard to explain without hearing it.
It is, but I think it's one of the things that makes that album so great is because it's got this sweeping breadth to it. It's got the lighthearted, schoolboy kind of stuff, and then it's got this, deadly serious eternal consequence kind of stuff.
And honestly, a lot of music and artists these days couldn't do what they did because people do not buy albums like they used to.
Yeah.
This was more of it was like, here's our sound, and you did this. And I love that time period. I can tell you that my band was influenced, my band in that time period after Berkeley. I had a band called Alchemy, and we were very different people, but I was always pulling these extreme influences in, had songs and had all this stuff onto it. But I'm gonna tell you exactly what happened when we had record label interest. They were always like, you guys need to pick a sound. And I'm like, but my favorite artist had all these faceted stuff. Zeppelin, Queen, Extreme. It was like, we can do a song that sounds like this and do this. But the record label was kind of moving at that time out of that. And they were like, they didn't, it was you guys, and now we have a very almost like homogenous type music where things are just predictable and nothing's really, if it's on the radio, I'm not going to get into that, but
you're preaching to the choir.
I'm just saying, man, I teach music and I bring in stuff and people will bring in stuff and I have to go I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really, it's terrible. But I also know too, that with music like that, I usually try to go by if they love this song, they're going to practice. So I will break down even hardcore rap and hip hop. I will break down some of the chordal stuff for kids, and they go and they're like, "Oh, I got some acoustic, but this is what I listen to: Kodak Black and all this stuff." And I'll listen to it and go, "All right, here's the chords," and they'll hit it and they'll go, "Oh, okay," because I feel like it's going to move them toward learning to actually go, "Wait a minute, I'm hearing chords." Maybe kind of plant a seed for some different music, and we can only hope. So.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But all my students at some point know, they see my Nuno. I have my N2 guitar sitting in my thing in there, and it's been renovated like twice. I played it so much, I rusted it out, had to have parts put on it, and but they all know at some point it's like, oh, Kenny's going to talk about Nuno Betancourt today in our lesson. Yeah, it's going to happen a lot, But,
of course, man, absolutely,
it's good stuff. But hey, listen, man, this has been a great time, and I've had a great time talking. We're getting close to an hour now, man. I'm gonna we'll probably wrap this up. We will I think we'll have some more talks. I think people like hearing what we're doing, so we may pick another song. We may just pick another Extreme album and go in and pick out stuff, because there's so much good stuff
Yeah, I mean, next time, I mean, we could easily do Born of Graffiti. We could do their second album. Yeah,
That's got some good stuff on it too, man.
yeah,
That's a great album. I really I love that. I was using some bits and pieces of some piece stuff from that album, letting somebody hear something going, this is Lydian. He's throwing this Lydian sound here to get this
yeah,
sharp four. And my student's like, oh, wait a minute, I hear what you're saying now. And I'm like,
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
it's good stuff. But
Well,
yeah,
see,
there's a lot of things. I love a lot of people think of me as being that I probably have a lot of Christian music, but most of my Christian music growing up, man, I was a metal guy, so Striper was big. I love groups like White Heart, White Cross,
White Cross.
yep, Petra. Those were really stuff with me to kind of. There was a lot of different ones I came across, but I was most of my stuff was very secular music, and that's
Yeah, mine
most of my
too.
background. And now it's like now I'm kind of getting close to a place. Some stuff I can't listen to anymore. There's things I hit and I listen to it and I go, oh my god, because I can hear the lyrics and I'm
Yeah,
convicted. I listen to it and go,
yeah, yeah. I hear you, man.
this is
But I think that's one of the cool things about extreme is that, um, I think people, if you're not a fan already, um, once you start down that rabbit trail, you will hear,
oh
especially
yeah,
if you're any kind of student of the Bible.
oh yeah.
I mean, it's just in your face
Hmm.
right there, like almost every other song.
Well, I can
Um,
say this: if we do something and play something, we know for a fact we're going to be playing some King's X because we love King's X probably just as much as Extreme, and we're going to have to play some Extreme. That's just it.
yeah, absolutely,
I mean, that's just going to have to happen. We're going to have to do it. And it may be,
absolutely.
maybe we can definitely, I would say Watching Waiting would be a great song.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
so I don't know who's going to sing Gary's part.
I don't know. Does it?
I'm just going to find us a great singer, man. We'll
This
have it.
this is does his name start with Nate and end with Samuel?
I, hey, that dude can sing. I've heard his
That
stuff. He's got some great things. Maybe we can talk him into doing that. Come down there. I would love that, man. It's
I've,
funny, since I've listened to Morning Creatures, I didn't know that his band was Sherwood until I started looking
yeah,
stuff. And I'm like, dude, I know this. I know this stuff. I have kids bringing it. I got some people who really love that stuff. And I was like, I remember he was on some pretty big tour stuff. So
yeah,
I was excited when I saw that. I was like, hey, man, he's legit. So
yeah.
uh, and he accepted my friend request. So now we're on Facebook and we're talking. So hopefully there's some talks happening. Put in a good word. We'll all chit chat. Let's get together on this and make it
Heck
happen.
yeah, we
Because I think
should.
that would be awesome. That would be awesome. So
Well, I don't see how you can get around not having some sort of live 80s, 90s band with the theme of this show.
we got to do it. No,
Just
I'm telling you,
it's got to happen. Got to
yeah,
happen.
it's good. We're just gonna come. It's gonna be all this. It's gonna be like blurry rock, and we're gonna put this in here and Burton's Beasts or whatever it is, the Beast of
Right,
Burton.
right. And
It'll all
if
come together. I don't know who's going to be the drummer yet. I got some people I'm talking to, man. There's some really great people. I really like the fact that we're kind of pulling this from uh, these Christian authors and
mhm.
people who researchers and people are doing stuff. And I think it's fun, man. 'Cause it's going to be it really pull something into it. So
Yeah, because
I'm not going to say any names, but I'm looking at some drummers.
yeah. Well, they have to pass the Jeff Porcaro Rosanna drum
Ooh,
riff
man,
test.
that's gonna stop a bunch of people. I do have a buddy out in LA right now, and I'm telling you, man, when we did some Christian music about 20 years ago, and he played it better than anybody ever heard. And
That is the one of the trippiest.
yeah. Matter of
And
fact, I'm gonna have to talk to him and see, because I haven't talked to him in a while, but it's really funny. I actually had a message from him. Oh, when did it come through? Da, 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 da. He actually sent me a message this morning. So
yeah,
there's a possibility, and I want to name drop him here, Johnny Matlack. He was one of the best drummers I've ever played with, and spectacular. So yeah, man. Because if
right on.
I might throw a message to him and say, hey, man, you need to be in on this. I mean, we're coming from all over the place, anyways, man. I'm coming from Virginia, and you're coming from Texas. Let's let's throw them all together and just make it a fun weekend.
Heck yeah.
It'd be fun. Well, listen, man, thanks so much, dude. I gotta head out and finish up because I am in my first week of my last semester of the Heiser class, and it's some pretty deep stuff, man. I was up in the middle of the night studying and reading and getting some great stuff, man. I love it. And as always, man, I like to send out prayers for Michael Heiser, man, going through a rough this year. I was real excited to see his wife, Drenna, posted some stuff of him doing some new class stuff, and he's recording.
Yeah.
He looked good in the video, and I was like, and you guys know, you guys are personal friends and do some really great stuff, the Fringe Pop and all these ones. So anybody out there, go look up on YouTube. Some of the discussions and dialogue between you and Michael Heiser is as good as it gets on the internet, and it's a lot of fun, and it's super fringy or blurry as things seem to be now. Everything's becoming blurry.
Fringy and blurry for sure.
Fringy and blurry, man. That's the way I roll, brother.
I love doing those Fringe Pop episodes with them, and people seem to like that.
That is good stuff, man. I tell people all the time, man. I said, and what amazes me is that it's so solid in his viewpoint and Christianity and who he is. I love it because to me, and I will say this is really interesting. The more I study and the more I learn, even from you, from Heiser, all these guys, that it trickles down into I realize that I don't really need to know as much as I think, because the basis of Christianity and who Jesus is a much simpler thing than we think, in terms of you just have to get to this. When you get here, you know it.
Right.
And then you can have all this crazy information, man. I was reading last night. It was like, well, there's pre-Easter Jesus and there's post-Easter Jesus, and we're having all this talk about this, but it's fascinating. But it's still, to me, I at the end, I'm just like, man, I know who Jesus is, man. He's the Son of God. That's who he was. He's my savior. He, it is the basis of everything in my life now. And because of that, I tell people, life can be really difficult. There's a lot of stuff, but with having that basis, man, I'm never at this point of I can't handle it, because that's the foundation, man. That's the rock. Jesus, man. It's Jesus is the rock, man. It's for everything.
Absolutely.
So,
amen.
I love talking with you, man. We have a great time, and you bless us immensely, man. I really enjoy what we get to talk about, and I'm so blessed and glad that you reached out to me, because I tell people all the time, I was just doing minor things, and then Judd reached out to me. He's like, when am I going to be on your show? And I'm like screaming like a little girl in my head. I was like, anytime you want. And I was like, man. And then and now now it's even better now. I'm like, man, we're friends, man. We're friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have talks, and it's good stuff. I actually think we had a couple talks where I wish I had recorded, because there was so much good stuff. And I'm like, that's why I said, you know what? We just need to get on here. We'll talk about the basic stuff, what you're doing, what's some new research you're doing, and then we're going to talk music stuff, man. Just bring it all in together. And I think they're really, really going to enjoy seeing that side of you that they may not realize you have.
Well, we at some point in the future, man, we got to track down Gary and Nuno's publicist and drag them on here and have a round table.
I think that would be awesome, man. It should be something to do. They're pretty busy, man. I always think back to when, what was it, Behind the Music VH1 used to have these hour episodes, and they went to do the one for Extreme, and it was only a half hour. They couldn't make it happen. I was like, what happened here?
Yeah, exactly.
I think they were that was a weird place for them at that time period, and they're kind of things going on with it.
Well, and it's a different, not to keep you on too much longer, but it's kind of a different landscape too with the internet. Like I see Paul Gilbert and like James LeBrie from Dream Theater, doing these little, podcasts, and YouTube shows of people that have, just a couple thousand followers. And so it's kind of a different, it's kind of a different field, the worst they can say is no.
That's true. Absolutely, man. How do you say, absolutely. But would you say no to two? All they got to do is come on here and watch us just like fanboy over all their stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be like
we're breaking down the lyrical structure of Watching Waiting and all this stuff. Hey, I figure there's got to be somebody's got to have some pull on that. I mean, I used to have friends when I went to Berkeley and stuff that I was really lucky because I got a lot of demos that I would love to find on cassette of songs that were never released.
Oh
Really
man.
cool stuff, man. And it's really funny because I would listen to these demos that, they weren't great, man. They were garage recordings. But the version they used to have of It's a Monster was different. A little different than the one he had. But I think it was that one, or it was no, it was Our Father.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah,
the version that they used to do that was live and I heard on this cassette tape was ingrained in my head. And when the album came out with it, the arrangement did not hit me like it did. And I was disappointed.
yeah,
They added something to it, which was the big sliding, like it was going like,
yeah,
Father. But when
yeah,
it was the one they used to have was just like, Our Father, bow, bow. It had this huge
yeah,
just hit and it space, and I loved it. I still love the song. It's great, but
yeah.
it's one of those things where I was like, man, and that really,
Well, and there's another one of those songs lyrically.
yep, it is.
They're
Oh, yeah.
talking about our Father far, farther away.
Yep, Our Father, yeah, man, absolutely, man. Look at us, we're doing it. All right, my dogs are going crazy. I think somebody must be at my house. But we're going to wrap things up, man. Put this out. Judd, thanks for coming on today. Everybody, Dr. Judd Burton, you can go what are some websites for you with your
Sure. Folks can for the courses and stuff, they can email me at professorburton@yahoo.com. Websites are burtonbeyond.com and tioba.org. And then I'm all over social media, so Facebook and Twitter and Gab and YouTube.
so
Lots of content.
TIOBA is the Institute of Biblical.
Institute of Biblical Anthropology.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
That's yeah, it stands out. So okay, that's just want to make sure people can do it. Hey, and if you can't find him, you can reach me, right? Send me a message. I will get whatever needs to Judd and get onto it. But join me in some classes, people. I need people to talk to. I can't bug Judd all the time. He's the teacher. I want people to talk to him stuff about, like, hey man, what's in this part right here? Vampire Zero, what? And I need people to chat with on this. So go sign up for some classes and do this. Judd, we will do this again soon, my friend. I know you're gonna be busy, but people keep an eye out. We'll probably talk about this and what's happening. Let's see what's happening. 2 of us are in.
Yeah.
I think we just need to get that little bit of blurry added to it, and we got something fun.
Put it in the blurry blender. We'll have it done.
I'm ready for it, man. Let's blur it up. All right, Judd. We'll talk to you soon, man. God bless, brother.
Okay, Godspeed, Kenny.
I'll see you, buddy.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.